Well, good morning, everyone. It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us for daily devotions through Redeeming Life Fellowship. And today, being Monday, we're going to be continuing through 2 Corinthians and diving into 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And unfortunately, I am actually totally out of coffee, so we're going to have to make this one pretty quick and try and shorten the devotion just a little bit. But I think that'll be good for all of us. So yes, if you haven't realized already, I think probably most of you know we follow the Revive School reading plan that's leading us through the Pauline epistles. And we're getting a word from Pastor Paul writing to the Corinthians again in chapter 6, admonishing them, defending the apostolic ministry, this ministry of reconciliation that God has entrusted to the apostles, but then also shifting the argument into admonishing them not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And so we're gonna I would encourage you, go ahead and take a moment, pause, and read through 2 Corinthians chapter 6, and then we'll return to it. So go ahead. One point that I would like to try and make for all of us listening here is actually just out of 2 Corinthians chapter 6, beginning in verse 1, where it reads, working together with him. This is Paul talking about this ministry of reconciliation, where he sees himself in partnership with God himself in bringing about reconciliation between people who are estranged from the living God and bringing them back together in fellowship with them. So working together with him, then we appeal to you not to receive the grace of God in vain. What might that mean, to say that you're receiving God's grace in vain? Because when we talk about receiving God's grace, that is responding with openness to the gift of salvation that God has offered to you and I. And if we receive that gift, all the blessing and the benefit that comes with this act of grace on God's behalf is real, it's made manifest. But what's interesting to my mind is that what Paul recognizes, and certainly we would get this from reading 1 Corinthians, is that it is possible in some measure or another to receive God's grace and never allow that sort of grace to actually transform our lives in a way that actually bears the fruit of righteousness, holiness, newness that's in the very depths of the human heart, where God begins his work. But he doesn't stop in there, he continues it. And I think what Paul recognizes is a pitfall that all of us are vulnerable to. That is, with thankfulness, receiving the grace of God and presuming that that was the end of the story, and that there isn't anything more that God wanted us to do, and that the work of God was somehow finished. I mean, salvation is certainly finished, but God still wants to do, he desires, he insists on doing and bringing about change and newness and holiness in your heart and in mine. And that we should not do as I think the church in Corinth might have been tempted to do, to receive God's grace in vain. In other words, to cheapen God's grace as a free gift, but nevertheless a costly gift that we receive, and we don't merely receive it, but open up our hearts to it. to say, God, the work that you began in me when I committed my life to you in salvation, when I repented of my sins and let you into my heart, that the Holy Spirit is making a dwelling inside my heart, that once that begins, that he's going to continue his work and see it through to the very end. So I admonish all of us, echoing, indeed, joining Paul in this admonishment, that we do not receive we do not receive God's grace in vain. So that's at least one point that we can draw from 2 Corinthians, and I find it fascinating where even as he is as Paul is defending his apostolic ministry, he's doing so in a way that really makes the apostles look like living, walking paradoxes. That is, two things that are seemingly opposite, but somehow functioning together in a realistic and functional way, where he talks about we commend ourselves in every way by purity, knowledge, patience, kindness, the Holy Spirit, genuine love, by truthful speech, through honor, dishonor, through slander and praise, treated as impostors and yet true, as unknown and yet known, dying and behold we live, as punished and yet not killed, as sorrowful yet always rejoicing, as poor yet making many rich, as having nothing yet possessing everything. So that the way that you can and somehow test the legitimacy of Paul's ministry is this profound work of the living God who is achieving his purposes and doing so in a way that defies the expectations of the worldly wisdom that people lean upon day after day. Lastly, where in 2 Corinthians verses 14 through 18, it talks about being unequally yoked with unbelievers, which, if you know, in ancient agrarian times where you have a yoke of oxen that's two wooden bars that keep the one oxen and another oxen driving in the same direction. That is, so when Paul talks about being unequally yoked in one direction, as oxen would be when they're plowing the fields, that in that sense we are not to be unified, bound together, and focused in the same direction as unbelievers. And this does not mean that we don't connect with unbelievers, people who are on the outside, and love them with the love of Christ. But it does mean what Paul points out when he's quoting the Old Testament. It says, "For we are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore go out from their midst and be separate from them, says the Lord, and touch no unclean thing. Then I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you. You shall be my sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty." So do remember, with regards to being unequally yoked to unbelievers, it isn't as much about running in fear from people who are unbelievers, but rather taking seriously our devotion and belongingness to the living God. So hold fast to that. Cling to God with everything that you have. Love him wholeheartedly today. And let's continue to pursue him and love him with everything that we have. I love you guys. Take care.